Welcome to the Guntersville Grassroots Podcast presented by Frog Talks. I'm your host, Pat Kennemer. My co-host, Mr. Trey Swindle, is missing in action again. Somewhere, he's actually in Texas practicing today was day one of one of the Opens on Toledo Bend, or Sam Rayburn won. I don't remember which one. We're running a little behind schedule. We were supposed to have done this last week. Before he left, he had a family problem. My guest got sick, couldn't talk, and then life just keeps getting in the way. So we're running a little week later. It's April the 13th, 2023. The fish are biting. People are catching a bunch of them. There's finally some water in the pond. Today we're going to have Lonnie Cochran on to talk with us. He's a guide here on Guntersville. Just has come out with a couple of new tweaks on some baits that he's working on with Picasso. I'm sure he'll talk about those. Lonnie's been guiding for several years. He's a great guy. Seems to catch a lot of fish. So we're going to get him on here in just a second and see if we can get him to teach us a little something. I've got Captain Lonnie Cochran on here with me. I'm not going to call you Captain Lonnie. But Lonnie is a longtime Guntersville guide, a good friend of mine. Lonnie, thanks for taking a few minutes to come on and talk with us. I wish Trey was here so you could heckle him, but he's...
Oh, I would do that for sure.
Oh, for sure you would. Yeah, he's are they at Sam Rayburn or Toledo Bend? Toledo Bend. Yeah. I couldn't remember when I was opening this thing up. I was like, well, he's out there somewhere, and he's lost. So he kind of just wanders and shows up here ever so often here lately. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think today was the first day too. I hadn't. It
was. I peeked a minute ago at the bass track thing. I did not look at the weigh-in start. So I mean, it's late enough. They ought to be weighing in. So.
Boy, I missed that so bad this year, but I'm just holding off to next year where I can fish all 9 of them.
Yeah, that changing it all 9 changes the game a little bit, doesn't it? I mean, particularly for somebody that's got another job, you know. Yeah. If you were 23 and didn't have a lot of responsibilities, it makes life a little easier.
Make a little difference, but I didn't want to go and try to qualify for the Classic. I wanted to go try to qualify for the Elite, so that makes a difference in fishing 3 or 9.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So for sure, and of course, you know, you qualify for the elites. It's worth changing your pace a little bit if you, just a little. So, so Lonnie, I know you've been fishing a minute. You were sick last week. We had to postpone things Trey had to bail because of a family problem, and then you were sick and lost your voice and started coughing, and I didn't figure anybody wanted to hear me talk to myself, so I just waited till I could get somebody on here to talk with me. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing on the lake right now.
Well, it seems like they are spawning from one end to the other. There's not as many as they were during the full moon, but there's still fish on the beds everywhere. I mean, I've fished from, say, Mud Creek to Sebo lately, and doesn't matter where I go, I'm seeing fish on the beds. Not a lot of big fish, but every once in a while you'll run across a 4 or 5 pounder, but a lot of, buck bass, and then 2 to 3 pound females still up spawning. In about any of the hard bottom areas you get around, you'll see them. But they're not real aggressive. I can tell you that.
Can't get them to chase anything. We were talking about that earlier. I mean, I caught a catfish on a chatterbait, but I couldn't catch a bass on one. So.
No, I've thrown. I pretty much kept the Wacky vibe in the hands of my clients, but I have picked up different baits throughout the day, just trying to get them on something else. And I just hadn't found, the other bait that they'll hit. You'll catch one here and there on something else, but not anything consistent. And even with that bait, I don't know. They want it. You got to move it, but then they want it to sit there as long as you can absolutely stand it.
Do you think you're landing it in their bed? Is that really the deal? I mean, you're not sight fishing for all these fish.
No, I don't think it's going in the bed. I mean, some of the ones I've seen I have, but I think it's just they're seeing so many baits that's coming by them, that's moving, and I think that's a little something to do with it. They just see so many baits that they hit some water, and then here it comes. And when you throw it out there, and this is what we're doing. we're throwing the thing out there and letting it fall. You're catching some on the fall, but then just like pop, 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 let it fall, pop, 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 and then we're just kind of ripping it a little bit, getting that blade to vibrate. And a lot of them is getting on it when it falls back down after it vibrates, or either when it falls back, just let it set. Like I say, as long as you can stand it, when you pick it back up, he's swimming off with it. And we've had a lot of them just pull the worm out of the O-ring where they're like it was laying in a bed. Now, some of those might be that situation, but you're casting at a distance and you can't see it from the distance you're casting it.
Right. So for those that don't know, Lonnie has, I guess, in conjunction with Picasso or something along the lines, has recently released a series of baits, but the one he's talking about is a Wacky vibe. Lonnie, kind of describe what that is.
Well, we come out with a shaky vibe last year in July. That one was a shaky head with a small blade on it to get vibration like a bladed jig, but you're able to put plastic on. So I got to messing with one last year around April. I took that same blade and attached a Wacky hook on it. And I found it to be really effective. And we talked about it then, but we kind of laid it down because we didn't have time to get it out before that season went by. And then we started to work on it again 3 or 4 months ago to get it like we wanted it. And basically what it is the same blade that's on the shaky vibe. It's a small egg-shaped blade out of circuit board with a harness attached to a Wacky hook. And it's not to be reeled, which I've caught some just reeling it in to throw it back out, and I've had some to hit it. But all of these baits in this line is designed to use like a tool. Work your shaky head or your Wacky worm or the Jinka, and the Jinka vibe is another one in the family. Work it just like a Wacky worm, and then put a lift in your rod to get the vibration. And you kind of get reaction strikes from that. Like, okay, I see this bait, but I see it 100 times a day. All right, when they feel that vibration, that one's different. It's getting away. That looks real, and it's drawing a lot of strikes. 100% of the strikes coming because of the blade, no. But I would say there's probably 50% of the strikes caused by the blade every day.
Really?
And that's the same way with the shaky head. The shaky vibe is the same way. And I'm telling you, the bigger version of the shaky vibe is fixing to be a big player anywhere ledge fishing, any lake you go to. Because I took the first prototype of it last year that they sent me. And of course, we done work through everything on the smaller versions to begin with, so we just had to upsize everything. The first 20 minutes I was out there, I had 3 weighed over 15 pounds. It blew my mind on a community hole that was pressured. But this thing, if you put a typical type plastic, which I throw the Berkeley fatty bottom hopper on it, those baits stand straight up and will stand there for like minutes without laying over. They're not used to seeing stuff like that. And then when you pick it up, you're getting the vibration of a bladed jig with a plastic bait now, not a skirted bait. And you don't have to reel it to get that vibration, just lift your rod. So it's just something that's added to. It's not reinventing the wheel. We just put chrome on the wheels.
Right, just made it a little different. So
it just made it a little different. But right now, they're up spawning in these shallow flats, and of course the Wacky version of it is what we're throwing. And we got them weighted too. The one I'm throwing right now is unweighted because I'm fishing in 2 foot of water or less, or 3 foot or less. But now we've got them with a 16th, an 8th, and also a 3/16. And while I'm on the subject, we get back to the fishing, but the 3/16 is heavy for a wacky worm. But the purpose of this is I was out in July fishing ledges, and I put a split shot, a rather big split shot on the hook of the prototype that I was playing with. I was catching 4 and 5 pounds fish on Guntersville in 14 foot of water in July on a wacky worm. I've never done that before.
And you didn't have to wait 10 minutes for it to get to the bottom.
Exactly. I mean, you're fishing it on bottom, and you're working it just like you do a regular wacky worm. You're getting the pulsation of the worm, and even when you lift it, it may fold the worm up a little more when you lift it, but you're still getting that pulsation. But you're getting it in 14 foot of water on a grass line.
Something they hadn't seen.
They have not seen that. So that's the sole purpose of the 3/16. But I will tell you something else the blade does too, on the weighted or the weightless. When you pull it to get the vibration, lift your rod upward, and that blade helps raise that bait up higher. Instead of pulling it to you, it comes more upward, so you got more room for the bait to fall back down.
You're getting more vertical action instead of horizontal.
Yeah. So there's several benefits from it. But if you get in a situation where you don't need the vibration, just work it like a regular wacky worm. It's not getting in the way. But that's all we've been doing for the past week, probably. I've been throwing it for a couple of weeks now, in and out with some other baits. But the last week or so, it's pretty much been, I could pull one rod out if I wanted to, and that's it.
Wacky rig or bust. That's just the way it is right now.
Yeah, that's just the way it is. And they're not wanting it like when we, move, shake it, and then, let it fall, or either when we're vibrating it, you want to let it sit there as long as you can stand it. Because it seems like either when you move it or make it vibrate, you're getting a reaction strike because they've been sitting there looking at it so long, or either they swimming by, just cruising around, and they feel the vibration, they come check it out, and then it sits there and they pick it up and just start swimming off with it.
Getting a little more attention just because of the vibration, they can let you feel it. Yeah.
Drawing attention is a big thing, and I've even caught them in some pretty stained water doing that too.
I could see that making a difference there. Where you normally wouldn't throw a stick bait or whatever your choice is. And I could see that making a difference for sure.
I wish today I had tied on one with the weighted version with all the wind we had, because it got pretty tough. And that was one thing. One of the guys that was fishing today, he said, "You know what?" He said, "I can actually fish this in the wind a lot better because when I pull it, I got resistance with that blade.
At least tighten your line back up a little bit.
It tightens your line up to feel what's going on. So there's a lot of added attractions to it,
Where can you get them?
Different things. You can get them about anywhere. I mean, waterfront, GTO around here. I think Victory Sports. I know Victory carries the Shaky Vibes. The Tackle Warehouse has got them. Midway USA, Picasso website. There's a lot of the major stores that's got them too. I think they're working on a deal with Sportsman Warehouse. I don't know if that's. I may not have should have said anything about that, but they're spreading out pretty good now.
We won't tell. Nobody will tell.
There's a few fishtails up there, the other side of Chickamauga. They have them. He's got a pretty good line of Vans Sporting Goods has got them
down there in Coleman.
Go around and listen, that Wacky Vibe, you can skip that thing under a dock like nobody's business.
Really?
I think blade actually helps it. Yeah. The guy asked me today, and I said, "I'll just show you." Pulled up to this dock, and I run a 20 to 25 foot leader on my spinning rods, and I took that end of that leader went slam out of sight under there in the wind.
With an unweighted one.
With an unweighted one, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you skip it in the wind, like I say, I put some under there, and then you got the vibration under a dock. Think about that. How many times have you had something you could skip?
You normally get it hung up if you throw something that vibrates under a dock.
Exactly. And you're going to get those hung up too at times, but that's just something else added to a dock fishing.
Sure, absolutely it is. So,
but now the lake, back to the lake, the
yeah.
lake is fishing good this year. There's a lot of eelgrass that has died back in different places. There's, like up at Mud Creek, I think probably 50 to 75% of it's died back. And there's milfoil and hydrilla coming back in those places. A lot of coontail too, but it seems like it may be trying to cycle through. It's not just shallow either. I mean, there's places that it was 7-8 feet deep that it's gone, it's clean, and now I'm pulling up stems of hydrilla and milfoil.
That's promising.
That is promising, and I'm seeing it in Roseberry now. I'm seeing areas in there, and if you go in there, you look, that water's a lot more tannic right now than normal. And that it done that in Mud Creek last year. Matter of fact, last year in Mud Creek, at one point, you would think you were down in Louisiana somewhere in some of that old backwater marsh, stagnant water, But I've been down as far as 431 Bridge lately. I've been down below it a little bit, but not as much as from there up. And I spent 3 hours idling one day on a Saturday about a month ago, doing nothing but idling and looking for areas that it has died back. And there's a lot of them out there. If you just sit down and idle, you'll find a lot of bare spots now that has had eelgrass on it. So something's happening to it. And I don't think anybody sprayed it, because a lot of the places we've got the milfoil and hydrilla coming back, and if they sprayed it, that wouldn't be happening.
Probably a culmination of the lower, well, whatever the new normal is on low. We've talked about that before. It seems to get lower in the winter, and it just has come up in the last week. But it gets lower, and then it froze near record temps for a week, which is, there's grass in places it looks like it didn't happen, and then
there's two things that has helped this lake this year, in my opinion. There's two things you need every year: hot weather and cold weather. And we didn't have a whole lot of hot weather last year, just a few days where it was extended. And when I say hot, I'm talking about 100 degrees. I want it hot. But we had 3 or 4 days, maybe a week of cold weather this year. Both the hot and the cold weather does something that they overlook it. It makes these fish group up. It sends these big gizzards and the shad out of this grass, shallow grass, out into the deep water and open areas, and then they group up. Well, when they group up, it causes the bass to group up. And that, along with some of the eelgrass dying back, has caused these fish to get in groups more. And I think you're going to see a ledge bite this year, possibly like you hadn't seen in several years.
Oh, look, when the Bass Pro Tour guys get here, second or third week of May, they're fixing to show it off.
Yeah.
They're going to, they're the best in the game, and they're going to absolutely murder it. So
it's going to be exposed because, yeah.
Oh yeah,
no doubt.
Get it before they get here if they're out there, and they're not yet. They're definitely not out there yet.
They're not. I've been looking, and I mean, I hadn't looked at everything out, but I've pulled in a time or two and looked from here to there, because I love to fish that way, and I can fish a little faster that way.
Yeah.
But there's not enough for me to go out there right now. Put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's too many up shallow. I mean, they're spawning all over the lake, which is kind of odd. Normally, used to, before we have the new water level like we have now early, you could fish spawning fish on the north end of the lake, pre-spawn mid-lake, and then you could fish pre-spawn on the lower end, spawn in mid-lake, and post-spawn up lake.
Mm-hmm.
You could follow the spawn down the lake, but last couple of years it's not been like that, and I honestly think that's just because of the water level is keeping them pushed out.
Kind of like Wheeler, they sit there at the mouths of the creeks and wait on the water to come up.
Yeah, and I actually seen that this year. A lot of the creek mouths were full of bait. They were full of white bass. They were full of largemouth and spots too.
Yeah.
But and it seemed like just all of a sudden when that water come up, they were gone. And then you started seeing them back in the creeks then.
Are you still catching all those spots, or have they kind of done their deal and moved on?
We caught 5 or 6 this morning.
Spots?
Spots, yeah. They were in the 1.5 to 2 pound range.
Yeah.
Not the 3 and 4 pounders like I was catching. But, we're borderline having a spot problem on this lake. And look, I'll be the first to tell you, I would rather catch a 2 pound spot than I had a 5 pound largemouth. I just love to catch spotted bass. And they're so aggressive, and a lot of times I'm throwing the spinning reels when I'm spot fishing, and it's just fun.
Right.
But unless I'm in a tournament.
Right.
But these spots are from one end of this lake to the other now, and even back in the grass flats where they shouldn't be. And they're getting big. Like it's not going to be long. Somebody is going to weigh 20 pounds of nothing but spots in.
It's already happened. It happened in the rattle trap tournament. I saw a 21-pound bag of spots.
Okay. Well, I didn't know about that, but I knew.
I put tags in one of them.
There's too many. Oh, you did?
I did. I tagged one on the lower end. Sure did.
I'm pretty bad to chase a spot now when I ain't got a trip and I'm down there just messing around.
Well,
I may have to go look for that one.
Hey, you've already caught one of my pets. If you catch another one, that's okay. But
boy, I hate to say it, I may have had another one yesterday, and I playing with him, and
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
I hate to, but
Lonnie is so big time, he shook off a tag fish.
I felt bad for PD.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if I bring him 2 in 1 month, he might start thinking something's going on here. So I just shook it off before I put it in the boat.
So the story with that is, I get a phone call from Lonnie yesterday. It says, "You're not going to believe this." And I said, "What is it?" And, "Did you catch another tag?" And he goes, "Well, I think I did, but I was playing around, didn't see it. And then by the time it came off, that guy goes, 'That fish had a tag,' or something like that." And then he called me and goes, "Man, I think I just lost one of your tags just playing around because I never flipped it in the boat." And I'm like, "Well, you know what? That's Miles Murray, who guides some, called me this morning. Matter of fact, when you sent me that text this morning, my phone rang right after, and it was him. He was on Pickwick. Miles is a guide. He guides on Guntersville. He had gone to Pickwick with a buddy fishing. He didn't register for all lakes. Guess what he caught? Guess what? He said, "Man, do you know if I registered for all lakes?" And I said, "Man, I haven't looked at that. I really don't know." And he goes, "I'm 99% sure I didn't." He said, he said, "I caught a tag." I said, "Where?" He said, "Pickwick." And I said, "Well," and I said, "Well, you're that guy and you knew better." So he threw it back. He said, "Man, I'm not going to pull it out. I don't want to take that opportunity from somebody else. I'm almost positive I didn't register, but for Guntersville." And he said, "So I'm just going to let it go." And I said, "Well, take a picture and send it to me because I want to make fun of you." And I don't have that picture yet, so we'll see. So,
well, I always register for all lakes because I go around so much. I don't want to be caught in that situation. But if you're fishing all these lakes, that is something I would and even if you're here for 3 or 4 days, it's worth doing. I've cashed in on this thing. I think all but 3 ways you can get money off of it so far. And you can correct me. I mean, you wrote all the checks. I think the only way I hadn't got money is the boat, the truck, or catching a 10-pounder.
Correct. No, that's exactly right. Yeah, boat, truck, 10-pounder. You've caught what? 1 or 2, at least 2 of the regular tags. You caught a prior year's tag.
Yep.
And you had somebody on a guide trip catch one.
Yeah,
and
that was registered.
right. So for the we don't really advertise this because it's just a handful of guides. But if a guide is registered and his trip is registered and his trip catches one, then the guide gets a little bonus out of that. So because it helps us get people signed up. So yeah, Lonnie, you've cashed in 4 different ways.
Yeah.
Boat or trucks next, right?
I'm telling you, PD, just look out, he's coming.
So
and we're gonna make a video when that happens.
Oh,
too.
absolutely, we are. Paul,
and it's gonna be rememberable.
Oh, by the way, I told Paul over at Waterfront likes to shoot videos with people that caught tags. I told him you'd been avoiding him. He's looking for you.
Oh Lord, when did you tell him that?
A day or two ago. So I talked to him on the phone. I said, by the way, Lonnie is bailed. It's weird. Is somehow or another, like, people are catching a bunch of fish right now, and the first 3 weeks they were catching tags left and right. PD sent me a text. He said Guntersville's putting out like a broke slot machine, and and then it's like they moved up on the bank, and it's weird. I had a gentleman from Hollywood catch one last Saturday. He turned it in over at Victory Sportsman, and I met up with him today. Matter of fact, we got him took care of, and he's actually headed to Sam Rayburn. He had signed up. He signed up for All Lakes. Miles, if you hear this old man signed up for All Lakes. So, but he's headed over to Sam Rayburn this weekend for the Big Bass Splash next week. Their event runs through the end of April. It starts in January and runs through 1st of May or something like that. But he had signed up for All Lakes, and he says, now if I catch one over there, can I bring it back here? I said, yeah, just take a picture, just a tag, But I said, absolutely, take some pictures, tell us all about it. So it's another $20 for All Lakes. So talking about Guntersville, looking forward. Next week, how much longer are we going to be wacky rigging before we have to do something else? What's next?
Well, I mean, the wacky rig's going to go for another
ever.
I mean, yeah, it especially like the wacky vibe with the 3/16 weight. That's going to extend that some, and that was the purpose of it. Now it may take a little bit for that to catch on, so it could be pretty hot to begin with because not that many people doing it, but we're coming up on getting out and throwing some big crankbaits, swim baits, 3/4 ounce jigs, shaky heads. We're not far off because we had a wave of fish that come in and spawn in February. I mean, there's been fry out on the water.
I've seen some of them.
Yeah.
Getting eat.
I don't. Yeah, they're getting eat. I don't think those fish have come back out yet. I know I've been looking. They're kind of hanging around in that water because the temps are cold. But as soon as this wave that's up now gets their deal done, we're probably 3 weeks away from, may not be that long from, the wacky rigs in the box, and we got big rods and big line now, and they're eating. The schools may not be as big to begin with, but we're close. We're getting close. Like I say, I'm already looking for it. I just hadn't run across it yet.
Somewhere in the middle of that should be a shad spawn and some bluegill bites too. So
yeah, the bluegill, and I actually talked to some guys that's already seen some burn beds.
Really?
But I'm pretty sure it's probably shellcracker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to come in there, and there'll be a topwater bite. And the shad spawn, with the amount of fish that's already spawned, it could be a really good shad spawn bite this year. Last year, I got on some shad spawns that was just great, but the fish were spawning the same time shad was.
Nothing there eating them.
Yeah. There was nothing eating them. And I mean, it was like 4 to 6 inch shad. And I'm like, oh my goodness, these are the ones that the big fish get in, but the fish wasn't there because they were up spawning.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think this year, and I've seen a touch already, but it was just a very little. But I think this year it could be a good shad spawn year. I think it's going to be a good year all around.
Has been so far. Yeah.
Yeah. You look at the weights, and I'm not talking about the winning weights. I'm talking about drop down 15 to 25, 30.
Yeah, 17, 18
That,
pounds, way deep in the bigger
yeah,
fields. The,
that's where you judge these lakes. You don't judge the lake by 30 pounds winning, and then you drop down to 20 and then down to 14. It's when you got to have 18 to 20 pounds to get in the top 25. The lake's in pretty good shape then.
yeah, the age structure of our fish is improving a little bit after that gap we had. I had a biologist on last year sometime last season, talking about having a couple of years of bad recruitment's the term they use, and
There was 3 years of it in a row.
right,
I remember it well.
yeah,
That's when the spotted bass started to get strong.
sounds like we need to fillet some spotted bass.
I'm telling you, you do. I had a guy the other day that wanted to mess a fish, and I said, "Well, we're not keeping largemouth, but if you want some fish, we kept 5 or 6 spots, and he took home and ate them. I mean, I'd rather catch the spots, but you know what? I go to Smith Lake and catch them spots.
People like to get on the internet and tease people about keeping fish. There's a guy who posts pictures on the one of the Facebook pages all the time. Says, "I'm giving these a cornmeal jacket." So.
Hey, let me tell you, them spotted bass are good too. They come out of that deep, cold, clean water.
Yeah,
they're good. They're really good.
So the water's up, not quite full. The floating grass is not as bad, but it's still there. The wind was blowing today, something special. But what water temps did you see today?
65.
65.
Was probably the warmest I've seen today. But now I was out in the wind, and it was cool. It was cool this morning, and the wind was pushing that cool air down in it.
What's the warmest you've seen in the last week?
I seen 68 yesterday.
68, yeah. When the sun was out. Of course, today it's cloudy and windy. So
right. I seen 68 yesterday, and I'm sure there was probably some areas that probably got close to 70, and maybe got 70 yesterday, but. The crazy thing, I seen 70 back in February.
Yeah, I know. The lake's definitely had its swings this year. All right, Lonnie, you're going fishing tomorrow. Well, you probably are going fishing tomorrow. But if you you're gonna need your Frog Talks rain suit tomorrow. It's gonna rain.
Yeah.
You're going fishing tomorrow. You're gonna have 5 rods on your deck for you, not your guide trip. But if Lonnie's going fishing for Lonnie, what's the 5 rods you're gonna have? And don't tie Wacky Vibe on every one of them.
Well, if I was I've got a guide trip tomorrow, and I'm gonna get out 5 rods with a Wacky Vibe on it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. It just seems to be the case right now.
That is the most consistent bite right now.
Yeah, I can tell you. We talked about this. I got out for a little while this morning trying to find something other than that, with 0 success. And you can pull up shallow somewhere and pick up a plastic, and you can catch a fish. It's the weirdest thing. I mean,
and move it slow. Not only that, move it slow. Move it slow.
So skip forward a week. Since tomorrow you're going to have nothing but Wacky. Skip forward a week. What are you adding in the mix?
Okay, I'm going to have a shaky vibe in both versions, like a 3/16 and a half or 5/8, and I'll have, of course, the Berkeley. Look, anybody that's followed me around lately, that shaky vibe was built for the Berkeley Maxent Magnum Hitworm. And I can put a green pumpkin magic on there. That's all I got to have. But I'll have that, and I'll have the bigger version with either a creature bait or a big Magnum worm on it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have me a 5 or 6 inch swim bait and a Berkeley dredger. Probably go ahead and tie the 25 on. That way I'm getting down and I'm dredging the bottom, even if I'm in 8 or 10 foot of water.
Right, making some noise.
Yeah, that, and possibly a spinnerbait around a spinnerbait or top water around a shad spawn.
Nobody throws spinnerbaits anymore. It's
no, but let me tell you, a number 6 blade, a big willow leaf blade on a shad spawn will get your arm broke.
I agree. When I like it when the blade gets nervous, it starts dancing around because some shad are hitting.
Yeah. So. And you probably know. I know we've talked about it before. A bladed jig is one of my favorite baits, but going forward, those other baits are just kind of going to take it over. But there again, I got my blade on a plastic now, So I kind of got my bladed jig, but in a different form.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it's a form they've not seen 10,000 times in 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
But that the big swim baits, and I've caught a lot of fish on swim bait this year too. But your bigger swim bait, when they get off these beds, they're coming out to eat. They're ready to feed up. And the 5 or 6 inch versions, and a spook top water, the cane walkers, the walking baits on top. You get in the right situation. The only problem with those, and I've been asked quite a bit lately of what about top water, is if you got fish around some floating eelgrass, you're going to run into problems. But there's a lot of buzz baits. There's another one that you can throw in there. It's fixing to get to where you can how you want to fish. That's what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
There'll
still be spawners. There'll be post spawners. There'll be fish come. Yeah. No, I get it. No, for sure.
There's going to be fish spawning through May.
Yeah.
I mean, you may not be up there looking where where they're at, and then again, and this is my opinion here. A lot of people's catching these fish on these 8 to 12 foot shell beds in May and June. Some of those fish are spawning there. They're not going to the bank to spawn. The water temps is a little warmer on the bank. The water's cleared up a little bit by then. They're spawning out there that deep.
And that's your May spawners too. A lot of your later spawners too, isn't it?
Yeah. And the fish that spawn back in February, if they're good and healthy, look out, they'll be spawning in July this year. It'll happen again, and it'll be deeper. Now, the hatch may not make it because of where they spawn, but it'll happen. Matter of fact, 2 years ago, I was telling Miss Betty, there's some spawn every year in February on Guntersville.
Sure there are. But always has been.
Always has. And it's most of the time it's on the north end of the lake, but and it's not in 2 foot of water. Some of them is, but it may be 4 or 5 feet. But I told Miss Betty Stahl, I said, we're gonna have another spawn in July. She's like, yeah, okay. Well, I told her, I said, look, I caught some with bloody tails. Mike Carter caught some with bloody tails, and I've seen a few others that were weighed in tournaments, pictures that fish had bloody tails. And I pointed that out to her, and I think it was September. I think it was September. She sent me a picture of a little fingerling about 2 inches long, telling me, well, I guess this confirmed what you said. I'm like, yeah, if they're healthy, they'll do it again.
Yeah, that biologist that we had on last year said that they do spawn multiple times. And, most people don't think of that. You think of the spawn when the water gets 63, 65, whatever, they do it and then they're done. But that's not always the case. And Guntersville is weird.
And that's when everybody sees it.
Right.
That's when everybody, they got cabin fever. It's warm. It's pretty. Hey, the fish are biting. That's when they go out and see it. I honestly, myself, I believe there's a certain amount of them spawn every full moon.
The bluegill do.
Yep. I have caught bluegill on the bed in December before. Been on years ago. When it was in a farm pond.
Yeah.
Yep. But I've done that. And I don't remember, maybe 4 years ago, we had a warm January. Is that 4 or 5 years ago?
Seems like every year, but yeah.
Well, no, this one was exceptionally warm.
Right.
We had a spawn in in January that year.
Yeah.
The end of January, there was a full moon, and they were spawning.
Mud Creek fish.
Nope, that was behind in the egg pond.
Oh, yeah.
They were up in 2 foot of water spawning, and they were even all the way back down by the campgrounds where those lily pads are back there. They were back there spawning.
These Guntersville fish don't read the rules. They never have.
Oh, no. The colder it gets, the shallower they get.
And don't make sense, does it?
Not none. That was something I had to learn when I moved up here, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
Now,
sure.
I tell you something I hadn't done. I have heard guys talk about throwing a frog on ice and them trying to come through ice. I don't know how true that is.
I hadn't seen that. I'm chasing something for feathers when there's ice.
But I wouldn't doubt it as shallow as these fish get when it's cold.
No, I wouldn't doubt it either. So, well, Lonnie, if somebody wants to get in touch with you to take a trip, how they need to reach out to you?
Well, they can call me, and I book trips through emails. Call me, but I'm on. I've got a website on there, Guntersville Guide Service, Lonnie Cochran. On the web, I'm on Facebook and Instagram all the time, so you can pull me up on Facebook, Instagram. I think they still got it listed on Berkeley's website. You can go through Berkeley's website if you want to.
Okay.
And pull it up. But
your number's available at all those places if they want to Google you up.
Yeah. I mean, I could give you my number now, but it's not hard to get.
Right.
Believe me, I get enough spam calls. I can prove that to you.
And there's a big old picture of him in Waterfront right now. You walk in there, you'll know who you're supposed to meet.
That feels pretty weird. That they asked me about it before they done it. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. But the first day I walked in there, that feels pretty odd when you walk in your big mug sitting up there.
Right, because it's just like, I'm just Lonnie. What's my picture doing up there?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No, I hear you. Well, Lonnie, I appreciate you coming on, taking a minute to share a little information. We could probably talk for 2 hours about stuff, and people get tired of hearing us. But
well, that's probably true.
But anyway, I sure do appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lonnie. See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Big thanks to Lonnie for coming on and talking with us for, what we thought was going to be a few minutes, and we got going. It turned into 40. So hopefully you listened this long. Guntersville, as we said, been fishing pretty good. This weekend, 2 days from the day I'm recording this, and hopefully have it out sometime the same day, Freedom Marine Tournament this weekend. If you like to fish tournaments, you're crazy if you don't fish it, because there is all kinds of goofy money in that thing. First place is $5,000. Second place is $2,500. Fifth place is $1,000, and every other fifth place through there is $500, and every 10th place is $1,000, and 100th place in this tournament, 100th place is $5,000. $200 entry, I think. If you like to fish tournaments, this is one you want to be in, because sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. Looking past that, there's a Heartland on Sunday. Week after next, you got the ABA Top 150 out of Goose Pond. Looking the weekend after that, another really good team tournament, Casting and Catchings out of Goose Pond. It's a great tournament. It's $100 entry. He keeps having it on the weekend of my anniversary, which makes it hard for me to go play in it. I'm going to see if I can talk the wife into it. But it's a great event, $100, great payout, fundraiser for the Children's Hospital. Until then, hopefully Trey will be back. I think next week. He said he might grace us with his presence for a little minute before he heads off somewhere else. Until then, enjoy the floating grass. Have a great day.